Alright then, so patch 6.0 is just about to drop as of the time of this video, so I thought it would be a great opportunity to basically just compile a list of the interesting and cool things that are being added in the patch. Of course, the Warlords of Draenor content is not there, but we've got the cool event, a whole bunch of new UI features, and in general, just lots of cool stuff that I think it would be good to, tell everyone about. Oh, and one little thing before we get into the video, apologies for my voice, I do have a little bit of a cold, but the news does not wait up for anyone, least of all me, so let's get into the list. Okay, so one of the new things that's actually really cool is the new map. Now this essentially will merge your quest log and the map into the same thing, and it's going to display all your objectives and things like that as normal. You can of course hide the quest pane, hide objectives and do all that, but another cool thing as well is you can now zoom and drag the map. This is such a handy feature. I'm sure that all of you have, at least at some point, been frustrated when you're questing, when the little circular thing for your quest objective, when you couldn't really see specifically what that was pointing to. Maybe, were you going up a cliff, were you going down a cliff, were you inside the cave, were you beside the cave? Well, now you can zoom in and see it just fine. It really is quite handy. And in terms of other things, you can also browse around zones and stuff like that. The only bit of criticism that I would have is that it was nice being able to just hit the L button and have every single quest there in a list. Now what you have to do is hit either M or L because, they both bring up the same thing, and then hit the red button on the top right. That's an extra step if you just want to see an overview of all of your quests, which I suppose is a little bit unfortunate, and I wouldn't mind it if maybe perhaps, Shift L would just bring up the traditional quest log. Still though, as an overall feature, I think the new map is really cool. The new Toybox feature has also been added to the game. Now this is a pretty cool thing. Essentially what it does is that it stores loads of those random fun items. Well, brackets fun. Personally, I'm not too into them, but, things like, say, your puntable marmot. They will get stored inside the Toybox, and you can access this by pressing Shift, P, and then clicking on the Toybox tab. So that's pretty cool. I think the main benefit here is that it takes these things out of your bag. I remember I always had a bit of a dilemma with these items where it's like I didn't want to delete them because it was a one-off thing from a quest, and it's so cool. But then, bag space, so I ended up deleting them, though I think a few things are retroactively being applied to people's accounts. Anyway, so another nice element of the Toybox tab is that it's going to tell you where certain items are required, whether that is a location, an NPC, or an achievement. That's pretty nice. You can also search and filter it, and finally they are adding in an achievement for collecting 150 items for this toy box, and if you get that achievement then you will unlock a Robo-Gnombulator, whatever the hell that might be, which will transform you into a clockwork gnome. I'm assuming it's similar enough to the Memoron model or something like that. I think the toy box is a really cool feature, and personally I'm happiest because it means Blizzard can still continue along this line of giving you these random little fun things, but it's not going to cut into my bag space, and that just makes me happy. Now, while we are on the topic of basically cleaning up our bags, well, they've also improved the bag functionality itself. There's a new button called the Clean Up Bags button, and what this does is it will sort your bags. Now, I think there's a default rule, but what you can do, which I think is super cool, is you can, on a bag-by-bag basis, apply rules. So, for an example, you could say that one bag is for your crafting materials, you could say that another bag is for grey items, and, maybe another bag's for gear. And then, whenever you hit the Clean Up Bags button, it would sort everything into those bags as per your rules. This is really nice, and those situations where your bags are just a complete mess, there's random items everywhere, well, you just hit this button and problem solved. Everything is decently categorized, and, you get a nice big chunk of free space, which is quite cool. Also, quest items no longer take up bag space, which is a pretty cool addition. And also, items actually have got a coloured border around them, and this is going to indicate their rarity, which is nice. And on top of that, junk items will also have a little gold coin icon on them, so that you can safely click them without fear of selling something that's particularly useful. However, I would just recommend getting an add-on to sell things like that for you automatically. Then finally, another absolutely just lovely thing is that mats will now stack up to 200 from 20. This is very good for bag space, obviously, you can fit a lot more in, but I've got to wonder what this is going to do to the economy. Now, I know that the actual amount of crafting materials is going to be the same, but having them stacked differently I just think is kind of interesting. So yeah, I'll definitely have to, just to see how that pans out, and indeed, it'll be interesting to see whether players default to selling stacks of 20 like we always have, or if people will start to maybe sell in a different, stack. Hard to know, but it could be kind of interesting to see how it plays out. Another cool addition is the Reagent Bank. This is a pretty nice thing, and essentially it's just a separate bank tab that only contains crafting materials. That's really nice because, of course, if you're a crafter or something like that, it does get very annoying when your bags are always just full of miscellaneous things. Now, one other nice feature is that you can just hit a one button, like deposit all thing, which will put all of your mats into the bank. Another nice thing is that you can craft using items that are in the Reagent Bank. So overall, this is just going to saving your bag space, put all your useful mats in one place, and in general just save a lot of headache. Okay, so the final storage improvement is that they have added in an extra void storage tab. This is pretty good because a lot of people are running rather low on space. However, this is only a quick fix for the sort of immediate future. Blizzard are actually planning on revamping the whole Transmog system in an upcoming content patch. It looks like they're going to do something similar to Diablo 3, which would essentially mean that you would unlock the look of a bit of gear, and it's not like you would actually have to store that bit of gear. So say you had, I don't know, the something pauldrons of X. Well, if you got that item at any point, then it would just unlock the appearance of that item, and you could sell the item, get rid of it, do anything like that. And that would certainly help out with bag space, and I think it would be a pretty cool feature, but we will just have to wait and see how that pans out. Another extremely cool feature that's been added is the new Group Finder. This is essentially Blizzard's response to Open Raid and OQ, and really with the popularity of Flex raiding, I think it just makes sense that they implement a good Group Finder tool. So the way this works is that you can actually just start a group for quite literally everything. Though of course if you're doing a raid, it would be best to categorize it as a raid so people can actually see your listing. Now, it's pretty cool. Essentially what you do is, you create a group, you list it on the group finder, and then you can put, a bunch of requirements or whatever. You can specify what voice chats system you want to use, and it's really actually pretty great in that regard. It's nice to see that perhaps there could be a little bit more of a social interaction going on here. Now, they have also added a bunch of measures to prevent people from just making overly high requirements. You can't ask for an item level that is higher than your own, and people can only see groups that they are eligible for. This basically means that if someone sets a ridiculously high item level, even if they do have that item level, well, not that many other people will, so they won't actually see the listing. It basically just incentivizes people to set reasonable requirements, which I think is a just nice little way of dealing with that problem. There have also been some tweaks to the mount journal. Nothing massive, but these are kinda nice. So first of all, the mount preview section will now tell you how to get the mount, whether that be an achievement, an NPC location, or something like that. I suppose this is pretty handy for collectors, but honestly, add-ons like Collect Me do a far better job. I think the main interesting feature that they've added, though, is the whole summon a random mount button. Essentially what you can do is you can right-click on a mount and then mark them as one of your favorites. Now, the list of your favorite mounts will just be kind of like sorted first in the mount journal, and whenever you hit that summon a random mount button, it's going to just summon one of those mounts at random. The game's graphical options have also seen some work. Essentially, you can now select separate graphic settings for raids and battlegrounds. I think this is actually a really cool feature because a lot of people suffer from performance issues in large-scale content. So yeah, hey, it's going to be nice for them. And also, while we are on the topic of UI improvements, it's probably worth mentioning that there's a new NPC outlining feature. Essentially, they just get a bit of an outline whenever you mouse over them. It's something that I like, but I think some people don't, so it's fine though, because you can turn it off. Overall though, it's nice to see these graphical settings being changed. Another thing that they're doing is they're actually reducing the appearance of other people's spell effects in raids and battlegrounds. Again, it sort of reduces clutter, and if you're a melee player, it means you might actually be able to see your character amongst the just crazy explosion of lights that there generally appears to be in a raid. Finally, they have also changed up the Keybind UI. It's now a nicely categorized list rather than being the horrible, long, disgusting thing that there used to be in the game. Also, just remember to log out after you do your keys, because if you get a random DC, then sometimes that can cause you to lose your settings. While this is a nice enough improvement, honestly, I think most people just use Bartender or one of those various add-ons to deal with their key bindings, and frankly, I would recommend just doing Bartender instead of the default Blizzard UI, because it's possible to make something that is quite a bit cleaner. Though, that said, my UI at the minute is an absolute mess, so yeah, it definitely needs to be cleaned up. Okay then, now that the UI tweaks have been covered, let's start talking about the actual content that's being added. So they are, first of all, adding the first 3 bosses of the Upper Blackrock Spire revamp. My guide to this instance should be out sometime tomorrow. It's a pretty cool dungeon, and it rewards item level 550 gear. Blizzard have also recently said that it's going to be tuned for people with a few bits of Siege of Orgrimmar gear. And what I will say is that if it's tuned anything similar to the level 100 version of the beta, then stuff can certainly kill you. Even though it might not be the hardest thing ever, you do actually have to not stand in the crap. Now, do bear in mind that this dungeon will be available as a level 100 normal dungeon, and also a level 100, that's not a word, a level 100 heroic dungeon. Then, of course, there will be the challenge mode as well. I'm certainly looking forward to just seeing the lovely wipes as people think it's just a regular Pandaria dungeon and they, you know, take 5 packs of ads at once and everyone dies. Yeah, I hope that does happen though, because I think that if Blizzard tune this kind of responsibly and to the point where it's not a ridiculous Zerg, then perhaps it's going to get people in the right sort of frame of mind and the right gear for tackling the Warlords of Draenor dungeon content. Of course, in addition to the Upper Blackrock Spire stuff, they have also added in the new questline in the Blasted Lands. This questline itself was really rather disappointing, in my opinion, once I tried it out on the PTR / the beta. But anyway, if you complete this, you will get the Iron Starlet pet and then also the Iron Vanguard title. In addition to that, there's a Bronze Whelp that can be dropped from the various mobs that are there. Now, while we are on the topic of the Blasted Lands, of course, you might notice that the Dark Portal is currently in use. It's what connects you to Draenor. Well, what they've done to allow people to get to Outland is they've just made it so that the old Blasted Lands portal in Stormwind or Orgrimmar will take you directly to Hellfire Peninsula. Another thing as well is that this is phased, so if you are not level 90, then you'll just see like the old version of the Blasted Lands, so it's not going to impede your leveling or anything like that. Okay, so this one may have just slipped under the radar for a few people. Blackfathom Deeps, Razorfen Crawl, and Razorfen Downs have all been revamped. Yeah, I know, it's kind of random, but hey, they're better. These dungeons have, in my opinion, they've got a more straightforward flow, and some of the fights have definitely got revamped mechanics that are a bit more cool. Overall, it's definitely nice for people who are leveling up, and I recommend checking these things out anyway. It's just a nice little thing that they randomly added. They are using some of the scenario tech to basically guide you through the dungeon, and yeah, you'll just see in the top right, you know, it'll tell you what the next boss is, and it just has this nice flow to it, similar to how they're doing that in some of the Warlords of Draenor dungeons. Overall though, it's just a really cool feature, and the dungeons themselves are quite fun. Well, I'm sure this point's actually going to have a lot of you pretty excited, so they've done a lot of little things with Transmog. First of all, the Season 1 bracers and belt can finally be purchased again. Personally, I'm really excited about this because the lack of matching stuff for my Hunter's Tier 1 Gladiator Transmog was really driving me mad, so yeah, totally awesome to see that be done. Another thing that they've done is they have basically made it so you can transmog all two-handed weapons. Again, I'm really happy about this because even though my Paladin is wielding a sword, I can finally transmog it over to the Four Dragons Blades. So yay, that's good, more options, more freedom, etc. So yeah, that's nice. Now also they have added in the Season 12 to 15 gear to the PvP vendors so that you'll be able to purchase some of the gear from the past seasons. I know there's been a little bit of a problem in Mists of Pandaria where a few of these sets have just kind of dropped off the face of the earth, so for those that want to finish those sets, it's definitely nice to have that option. Okay, so this next one is going to be really cool for the gold makers. The auction houses are now being merged between the factions. I think this is a really cool thing actually. If you're on a balanced server, then you will just have a larger economy to take part in. Now, of course, this will bring a bit more competition, but it will also bring more, more demand, more supply for mats, and overall, just a larger, more dynamic economy that hopefully you'll be able to make some more money off. At the end of the day, if there is, a increased amount of gold being traded on a single day, then if you're clever, you will be able to make more. Now, another cool thing is that if you are on an unbalanced faction, then you will actually now have a usable auction house. A lot of people have had this problem where maybe their server is 80-20, which means that on their side, it's really hard to get anything done in the auction house. Well, now it's going to be a full-sized auction house, so that's going to be very nice for a lot of people. Even though the Connected Realms have helped out with overall populations, they haven't always fixed unbalanced factions, so it's nice that this will hopefully alleviate that issue. I'm also pretty happy about this change personally, as I like to sell things like glyphs and transmog gear that do a pretty, they do better when there's a lot of people involved in the economy. The changes to your class and racials are also in. Now I will probably do a few quick, kind of class transition guides for the classes that I personally play, and I'll just put a screenshot of the racial changes up now. Maybe it's best to pause the video if you're really interested in that stuff. Now bear in mind that your class will actually change quite a bit by the time you get to level 100, due to unlocking the new Draenor perks, level 100 talents, and then the actually rather transformative tier 17 set bonuses. Now for many classes like say the Hunter, stuff's gonna play largely the same at level 100 as it does at level 90, but there are definitely a few classes like say the Paladin, which really do benefit from some of the Draenor perks, which actually even go as far as providing some new procs and baked in effects to your spells and just lots of cool stuff like that. Now also these class changes have also resulted in a lot of raid buffs and things like that being pared down. It basically, the raid wide utility got so high in MoP that they decided they wanted to remove a whole bunch of that functionality so that more of the responsibility would be shifted onto healers. Even though things will change by the time you get to level 100, I still recommend just getting acquainted with your class again and ensuring that you know all the stuff. The one bit of goodish news is that most things do play largely the same, and for most cases they have just removed some of the bloat spells and things like that. However, there are certainly a few classes that I think have maybe came off worse for wear from the whole process. The changes to itemization are also in. Basically, hit, expertise, dodge, and parry are all gone, and they've also removed reforging. Those secondary stats will be converted to other useful ones. Now in terms of other things, Spirit is going to be exclusive to healer items, and bonus armor is going to be an exclusive thing for tank items. Now these stats will be on rings, necks, trinkets, cloaks, and other non-armor bits of gear. And then finally you will be able to upgrade items using 50 lesser charms of fortune. Overall, I'm happy enough with these itemization changes. And basically, I think that, Transmog, reforging was a bit of a messy system. I didn't particularly find it to be much fun, and it just generally felt like a little bit more work to do. Again, with things like hit and expertise, you dealt with them at the start of the expansion, and after that, you just kind of forgot about them. So yeah, that's what's going on. Also, there's going to be new things like tertiary stats and things like that being added, but that's more with the Warlords of Draenor gear. I think what they're doing right now is they're just porting the MoP gear over to the new system. It's also pretty cool that we'll be able to dump all those lesser charms into item upgrades. I know that's going to increase everyone's item level quite a lot, which I guess is going to be very handy for those who just want to go and kill Garrosh and maybe get their Garrosh heirloom. Also, the new raid system is in. Now, as far as names go, Flex difficulty has been renamed to Normal, Normal has been renamed to Heroic, and Heroic has been renamed to Mythic. This is mainly to reflect how more people run Flexes than Normals, therefore it makes sense that Flex is actually the normal because, well, you would think that the normal is the thing that the most people do. Now, each one of these difficulties is going to have a different lockout. Normal and Heroic will be flexible from 10 to 30 players, and Mythic will be for 20 players only. This is being retroactively applied to the Siege of Orgrimmar, so this is a pretty good chance to just mess around with the new system, see how the scaling works, and perhaps just get some practice in with your new Mythic team, if you are so lucky to have one. Now, while we're talking about the raid system, I think it's just worth popping in here and saying that the Garrosh heirlooms will now be a 100% drop for your primary spec the first time you kill him as of 6.0. So if you don't have your heirloom, get in there, kill Garrosh on normal, on heroic, yes, on normal or above, silly me, and yeah, you'll get your Garrosh heirloom. Now this heirloom is pretty useful as it will scale up to item level 620, which is just below heroic dungeon gear, so it really will be quite nice to have in Warlords of Draenor. However, don't worry, if you don't manage to get the weapon, there will be an item level 610 thing that's available from doing the Proving Grounds at level 100. They have also added in the new Skirmish system. Now this is something that is really exciting for just for a casual PvPer like me. I don't really have the time to just, get formal teams and do all that stuff. So this is going to be really cool. Essentially, these are unranked arenas that use matchmaking. They can be either 2v2 or 3v3, and during 6.0.2, they will give you honor points. Now, at level 100, it will be slightly different because they are changing up PvP gearing a little bit. You will still get honor points, but in addition to that, you'll also get strong boxes. These can contain gear, usually a low-level entry kind, gold, or conquest. Overall, I'm just really excited for this feature. Sometimes I feel like just sitting down and PvPing in a sort of small setting that isn't just a battleground, and this just facilitates that perfectly. It's also going to be a really accessible way for people to hone their skills in the arena and actually just get a bit of practice in a sort of low-stress scenario. So overall, I really am quite happy with it. It's also something that will have a little bit of matchmaking going on, just to ensure that you're not going to be paired up against people with an extremely high MMR when you're actually a new player, because guess what? That actually, well, it sort of sucks. You die very quickly. Alright, so the new character models are also in. I assume that most of you know this, so that's why it's so low on the list. And basically, these are going to be just new character models for every pre-Cataclysm race, apart from the Blood Elves. Essentially, they just couldn't get the Blood Elves done on time. I think they had an early version of it, it's sort of in-house, but they decided that it just wasn't good enough. Now, you will be able to switch between viewing the old models and the new ones if you really don't like them for some reason, but even if you're not 100% happy with the exact model that you get, they've actually done something to help you out in that regard. You will be able to customize your face at the barbershop as well for a small amount of gold, so this now means that at the barbershop you can do your, your face, your like horns or whatever if you're a class or a race that involves all that stuff, and basically everything I think apart from your skin color can be changed, which is pretty cool and definitely I think is something that is needed, because while the transitions from the old models to the new ones are pretty accurate, there are a few changes here and there that are just inherent to making them actually be good quality models. A lot of the old ones looked so wacky and unique because the capabilities of the old model system were often so bad that they actually just had to flat out paint things onto the, to the texture of the model instead of actually being able to give them some 3D geometry. So there you go, new models are in, and finally we've probably got the most important and exciting feature of the expansion. It's the character undelete, which, yes, has been added. Now, this is a bit of a strange feature. I find it hard to know just exactly what it's going to be useful for, because surely if an account was hacked, then you'd be contacting support anyway. But I suppose if you just get really angry sometime, well, you'll be able to undo it. Now, the way it works is that if your character's from level 30 to 49, then it will only be kind of undeletable for 120 days, and if your character is from 10 to 29, it will be undeletable for 90 days. After that period, your character's dead. If it's a level 55 Death Knight or a under level 10 character, then it will not be eligible for undeletion. However, if it's anything above that, so like a level 90, 80, 70, or 60, then the good news is that you'll be able to undelete whatever character you want once per month, which is, I suppose, pretty cool, but once again, I just kind of don't really know who is going to find this really particularly useful. I suppose that if a player is deciding, that they might want to come back to World of Warcraft and maybe they have some deleted characters, well, then this system would be a little bit of an incentive. Alright then, so that is it for the list of things that are being added or just tweaked a little bit for the duration of patch 6.0. Overall, just getting, acquainted with all these features will probably ease you into Warlords quite well. Now, I have not covered the things that were removed in this patch. I already partially covered it in a previous video called like 15 ways to prepare for Warlords of Draenor and patch 6.0. However, if you want just a perfect text list of all the stuff, then Wowhead have actually got a fantastic guide which covered everything that was removed in the patch. Of course, that information may not be as useful to you now because there's not exactly a great deal that you can do about it, but hey, at least it's nice to know that whatever you do is not pointless. I can't imagine there's probably going to be someone who's just going to beat their head off the wall and try to get something that was removed. Ah well, yeah, so patch 6.0 is pretty awesome, actually. There's some new content, some new features, and overall, just lots of nice stuff. Lots of cool little modernizations and improvements that I think a lot of players will really appreciate in the long run. Anyway, that is it for the video. You can check out the rest of the channel. I've got 1 to 2 videos a day covering all the latest Warlords of Draenor news and stuff like that. Once the expansion comes out, I will be going absolutely bonkers on the guides for every rep, as many classes as I can play well, and all the dungeons and the raids and all that stuff, so it should be a great time. Hopefully one that's a bit less plague-ridden than I currently am. Sorry about that. The cold is indeed a lovely thing if you're trying to make videos, but anyway, that is it for the video. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.